It is often called a crisis of ideology or a crisis of foreign policy. But if you look closer, the turbulence in Iran is actually a crisis of accounting. For decades, a specific agreement held the nation together. The state controlled the resources, and in exchange, it guaranteed the livelihood of the citizen.
To understand the contract, you must respect the origin. The 1979 revolution was not merely a change in management. It was a promise to the oppressed. The core tenet was independence. The state took control of national assets to shield the population from the exploitation of foreign powers.
But a contract written in 1979 doesn't account for the demographics of the 2020s. You have a highly educated youth population entering a market that has nowhere for them to go.
How did the divine economy fail them?
It ossified. The institutions meant to redistribute wealth, the bonyads, became monopolies. Instead of serving the poor, they began serving the political elite. The modern Iranian citizen is seeing their inheritance spent on projects they didn't vote for, while their purchasing power evaporates. The state is still demanding obedience, but the check for livelihood has bounced.
You call it a bounce check, Jane. I call it a siege economy. You cannot ignore the external strangulation. When a nation is under maximum pressure from global sanctions, resources must be diverted to defense and strategic depth. The social contract shifts from prosperity to survival.
That is a convenient deflection. The siege doesn't explain domestic mismanagement. The fracture isn't just about sanctions. It's about priority. When the government cuts a fuel subsidy for a taxi driver in Tehran to fund a militia abroad, they are unilaterally rewriting the terms of the contract. They are asking the poor to subsidize the state's ideology.
Let us map this friction. Imagine a closed loop. In the past, oil revenue flowed down, creating social compliance, which flowed back up. As revenue shrinks, the flow downward stops. However, the state still requires the upward flow of compliance. To bridge this gap, the system replaces financial incentives with security enforcement. The friction is heat, generated by a machine running without lubricant.
We saw this mechanical failure clearly in the protest waves regarding fuel prices.
The price adjustments were fiscally necessary. No state can subsidize energy forever while fighting an economic war. Restoring order was required to preserve the integrity of the nation against opportunists.
But look at who was on the street. It wasn't the wealthy elites. It was the oppressed. The very base the revolution claimed to represent. When the state met their economic desperation with force, they didn't just suppress a riot. They severed the emotional bond of the 1979 promise.
Consider the metaphor of the load-bearing wall. The subsidies are a thick, ugly wall in the center of the house. They make the economy inefficient and cramped. Economists agree the wall should go. However, the wall is holding up the roof. If the state removes the subsidies to balance the books, the roof collapses on the citizens. If they keep the wall, the house slowly rots from lack of renovation. There is no cost-free move. The tragedy is that both sides are driven by a fear of collapse. The state believes that loosening control invites chaos. The citizen believes that maintaining the status quo ensures poverty.
So, the disagreement is rational.
Completely. The general prioritizes the survival of the unit, the nation. The doctor prioritizes the survival of the component, the individual. But a nation cannot survive without individuals, and individuals often perish without a nation.
The breakdown of Iran's social contract is a warning signal to any system that relies on resources rather than representation to buy peace. Money runs out. Ideology fades. The question facing Iran is whether a new contract can be negotiated peacefully, or if the terms will be settled, as they often are in history, through the absolute breakdown of the deal.